This is the first time I've seen this picture. This is the man who fathered my children. You meet a guy, you fall in love with him, you know, he could tell you the sky is pink and you go, yeah, it is, and you know it's blue. But you go along with it because you're in love with this guy and you feel like he wouldn't do anything to put you in any harm's way. Whatever I did feel for this man, it doesn't exist anymore. That died a long time ago. The whole time I was looking at him, I was just thinking, can I reach him? Can I get to him before they get to me? How much damage can I do if I do get to him? Will it be enough to end his life? 2 seconds, that's all I need is 2 seconds. And I'm willing to go to jail for that because I have nothing to live for. I hope you rot in hell. When we first met and became involved with each other, he was a little bit older than me. I met him in school. He was very gentle, very, very, very kind, and that very attentive.
I like your smile.
He just was so, I guess the word is smooth. I felt the way that he treated me was something that I hadn't experienced with anybody else. Everything just fell into place.
I've been having such a good time with you. I have something to tell you.
I got pregnant, and when I found out he was excited about it, you know.
Yeah?
That was his baby, and what he wanted to do was to marry me, so that's what we did. The day that I got married, it was November 21st, 1964. It was surreal. I was happy. I was finally Mrs. Reginald Brooks. And I just figured we'd be together for the rest of our lives, like you're supposed to, till death us do part. And I believe that. We had our second child, and we were still getting along really, really well. At least in my mind, I thought we were. The only thing that I, had a little bit of concern with was why are you always trying to keep people away from me? My favorite uncle was visiting our family. He was at my parents' home.
Hello?
And my mother called to tell me that he was here and wanted to see me. And I was excited about that.
Oh, yeah? How long is he here for?
They're going to come over here and visit for a little bit. I made all these arrangements.
Maybe you guys could stop by today. We're not up to much anyway. Yeah? I'd love that. Well, I'll see you soon then.
Who's that?
And then when I told Reggie about it, and he's like, well, they're not coming in here.
I don't want them here right now.
I'm like, what do you mean they're not coming in here? When they get here, just don't answer the door. And I said, why not? He said, because I don't want anybody in here. And I'm like, okay. He didn't say it mean. He didn't say it, demanding or anything. It was just a normal conversation.
I really don't feel like entertaining anybody right now.
I didn't know where that was coming from. Maybe he just didn't feel like, having no company here. I had no way to warn my mother because there were no cell phones back then. So I couldn't call and divert them.
Reggie, can I get the door?
They came and they knocked and they knocked and they knocked, and I wasn't allowed to open the door and let them in.
Reggie,
Don't. Please.
please.
It felt like an eternity to me that my mother and my uncle were standing on the porch knocking on the door to get in, knowing that I should be there.
Reggie, I need to answer the door. This is very strange.
And I wasn't opening the door. I was just standing there and just hoping that, eventually that they would stop knocking and just go home. I was very young and very naive to a lot of things. I was a little too embarrassed to even go over there, even later on, and, even try to explain anything, because I was just like, wow, what do I say? That was just that one time, and after that, if anybody were to come around or come to visit, whatever, I just go to her house. It just made it easier. If he didn't want to go, that's fine, but we're going. You don't want to participate in anything, that's fine, we're going. So it never happened again. He was a loner, and I kind of respected that, but then he started not wanting to do too much. He stopped going out of the house.
Now you can't catch me.
He wouldn't go anywhere. He wouldn't go to the store with me. He wouldn't go to anybody's home with me. If we were invited anywhere, he didn't want to go.
Reg, you want to come into town with us? We're going to go to the movies.
So hang out here for a little bit.
He didn't want to be around his family. He didn't want to be around my family. He would sit on the porch and he would watch the kids play. And then eventually he stopped even sitting on the porch and he just stayed in the house. I didn't perceive that as being strange. He just was a recluse. He just got to the point that he didn't want to associate, or he disassociated himself from the outside world. That's how I perceived it. It's like, okay, this is how you want to live, or this is how you want to be. That's on you, but we're not going to stay locked up in this house. We're going to do what we do on a daily basis. If you're content to sit in here, then that's what you do. He felt somebody out there was out to get him or trying to poison him. I had made this beef stew. Me not eating with them was not unusual, because if I'm making sure everybody is fed, I'm doing stuff. But he wasn't feeling all that great, and he was sick.
Beverly?
Yeah, babe?
And then he comes in there like, I've done something.
What are you trying to do? You better tell me what's in this, okay? And don't you play stupid.
And accuse me of putting stuff in his food.
What are you talking about?
He said, what'd you put in the food? And I said, seasoning, what I always do.
Are you okay?
I don't know why you would think I would do something like that. Where would I even get poison?
Stop denying it. That's why you haven't eaten any of the stew.
Come on, the kids ate it too. Do you really think I would poison my own children?
Prove it.
What?
I said prove it.
He is like, well, I need you to eat it.
Eat a bowl right now.
Fine.
I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem eating it. So I did, and he stood there while I ate it. And I ate it.
See? Nothing wrong with me.
I don't know why you're feeling this way. I don't know why you're sick. Has nothing to do with your food.
Reggie, you really don't look so well.
He still wasn't feeling any better. So I finally convinced him to go to emergency because I don't know what's going on. And he had appendicitis. They took him straight in and took him up, and they said he had half an hour to live before he would have died from it rupturing. And if I had not made him get in that car, he would have died. All I had to do was wait a half an hour. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him, and I tell him, I will kill you.
Got it?
And if you think I'm kidding, try me. He was becoming more and more paranoid being at work. He felt that his co-workers were out to get him or do him harm and was trying to poison him, and at that point, quit his job. After he quit working, Reginald's behavior started to change. The kids' friends would come by and visit with them. He would disappear into our bedroom. But he would be peeping out at them and would stare at us, looking to see what we're doing, acting strange. He never came out of the bedroom.
Mom, he's doing that thing again. He keeps staring at us.
But, he wasn't bothering anybody, and it didn't bother me, so I'm saying to myself, don't pay him any attention. That's just what he does.
He's just going through a rough patch. I think it's his nerves.
Can you tell him to stop?
We're not going to be isolated because you don't want to be bothered. I didn't think it was that serious. I just felt that this was something that our family was going through. He's acting strange, and more than one person is seeing it. But we're still trying to move forward to make it better. So, okay, I can handle this, and we can work through this and get it together. I would be getting ready for bed, and Reggie was in there laying on the bed watching his television shows. He'd been doing that all day. And at a certain time of the evening, the TV would go off. They called it signed off. You'd get this snow, or you get this Target picture on there making this noise. He did not turn it off. He left it on. It's that all night long. And I'm like, can you turn that off? I gotta go to work in the morning. I need to go to sleep. And I can't sleep very well with that noise on there. He just ignored all of that.
Reggie, you gonna turn the TV off? Reggie!
I was not gonna get up and turn it off because I didn't know what that would do. I mean, he wasn't physically abusive with me, but I wasn't trying to get to that point. So I was just like, well, I'll just have to tune it out so that I could get some rest. You're so tired, you have no choice but to go to sleep. You can sleep through anything. So I just kind of blocked it out and got my rest and would get up and go to work. In the middle of the night, I woke up to smelling smoke. So I got up to see, and it was inside the house, in the kitchen area. So I went in there to see what was going on. And I had a rag doll. It was an ornament that you hang on the wall. And he had laid it on the stove and turned on a very low flame and set the doll on fire. I don't think it had been on there very long. It was just on there long enough to cause smoke, because all I had to do was take it off and put it under some water, and it was under control.
Reggie, why would you put this on the stove? You could have burned down the whole house.
He was in bed when I woke up to the smoke. So he had gone in there and done that and got back in bed. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why would you turn the stove on and we're all sleeping? Why would you do something like that?
Reggie, please answer me. I can't help you if you don't talk to me.
But I just never got any response as to why. So it's like beating a dead horse, so why keep asking the same question if you're not going to get an answer? I had to let it go. But that made me more on my toes of, okay, now I gotta beware that you might go in there and put something on the stove, I don't know what. It was actually strung up like in a noose by his neck, like it had been hung, and had a hole in his heart. That was just devastating to me. I was just trying to make it through day by day. In my own mind, I guess I was thinking, what's going to happen now? What's he going to do tomorrow? Our youngest son, Niarchos, had a little doll as a dog, and he slept with that doll. Well, I got up one morning, and as I go into the living room before I wake up the children, I see this doll. The doll was hanging up on the chandelier. I didn't know why it was up there. And my first thought was, oh, maybe they were playing, they got hung up there and they just didn't take it down. But as I looked closer, it was actually strung up like in a noose. And it had a hole in his heart. So I know the kids did not do that. So I take it down before the kids see it up there. I don't know what their reaction would be to it.
Reggie! Why would you put this up there?
I say to Reggie, what was the purpose of you doing that? And he just kind of looks at me and he just never answered that question.
What are you doing, Reggie? Reggie! Tell me something!
It was like talking to myself, so why continue the conversation? I know that Reggie believed in voodoo. I know that he felt like there were certain things that you could do, that you could put a spell on somebody. So this is when things started becoming a little, what's going on with you? It sounded like incantations or chantings. I don't want to say speaking in tongue, but I certainly didn't know what he was saying. I'm not sure if he's saying something or singing something or talking to himself or what's going on. And so at that point, I decided to call the police. Somebody needs to come in here and do something because I don't know what to do. I sent the kids to their room and I called the police.
This is the police. Please open the door.
As soon as they knock on the door, whatever he's chanting, saying, or whatever in the room, he stops doing that.
Hello?
They said, can we come in? He says, yes. They go in there. They talk to him. I don't go in there. They're in there for about maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and they're talking to him, what's going on. I don't really hear what he's saying to them. And then they tell me that they're leaving.
You're not gonna do anything.
Ma'am, frankly, we can't do anything else.
And they said, no. I said, well, why aren't you taking him with you? And they said, well, he's coherent. He's answering our questions. Has he harmed you physically? I'm like, no.
He's no immediate threat to anyone.
But you heard him yourself.
He's in there talking crazy. I don't know what he's saying. Can't you take him out of here, take him to the hospital, take him somewhere? And they said no.
If he hurts you or any of your kids, certainly give us a call. But until then, this is the best we can do.
That was just devastating to me. I called the hospital and tried to talk to a psychiatrist to see what they could tell me. They told me I'd have to bring him in. I'm like, well, that's not happening because I can't get him to go anywhere. So I was between a rock and a hard place. One day, I walk into the kitchen. The phone is off the wall. It's clearly broken. So I'm thinking, is the fact that I called the police upsetting to him?
Why would you do this?
And he said, I don't need people listening in on any conversations or recording conversations.
Nobody is listening, Reggie. Why would anybody care about our phone calls?
I said, what people? What are you talking about? He thought the conversations on there were being recorded by somebody or listening to.
Who?
You know who.
If he was having one of those paranoid episodes, I need to be on alert with him. I just didn't know what he would do next or what he could be capable of doing. At that point, just a watchful eye on everything.
Off of me!
I woke up to a lot of commotion, and it was coming from the kids' room. I come into the hallway and I see them in the kids' room, and he was literally jumping on our oldest son.
Reggie!
He was beating on our oldest son. And I'm trying to pull him off of him.
Reggie, what has gotten into you?
Don't try and stand up for him.
When I got him to at least stop beating on him, I said, what did he do that's so bad? He knows what he did. He knows what he did.
Will you relax?
Don't tell me what to do. I can handle myself.
I said, sweetie, what is your daddy talking about? What did you do? He said, Mama, I don't know.
That boy's gonna get exactly what's coming to him. You hear me?
Yeah?
Exactly.
Well, you better step back or you're gonna get some too.
He's wondering what the heck is going on.
Baby, why did he hit you?
I didn't do anything. Liar! I did!
He just kept saying, he knows what he did. He knows what he did. And I said, well, clearly he doesn't.
I'll handle this.
I said, are you okay? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, well, just go lay back down. And he went back to bed.
Reggie, living room, now!
They've done nothing wrong. They've never been disrespectful. They never even talked back to him.
What is going on, Reggie?
Now, I'm not going back to bed. because I can't trust him to not go back in there.
Why would you do this?
Okay, so now you're taking sides. That's
I'm
what
not
it is?
taking sides, but this is unacceptable.
That boy got exactly what he had coming to him.
So I said, I don't know what he did or didn't do in your mind's eye, but I will tell you this.
I'm not playing games anymore. You understand?
He's my child. And if you ever put your hands on my son again like that, I will kill you.
Got it?
I said, if you think I'm kidding, try me. I never met anything so much in my life. He used to kind of help them with their homework and stuff.
Hey, why is that one blank?
Having study sessions at the dining room table, and I just go around the table, who needs help with what? Reginald said something to Vaughn, and Vaughn said something back to him.
What did you say to me?
I said.
And he smacked him. Reggie smacked Vaughn. He smacked him in the face.
Stop! You get off of him!
I jumped up and I went and got in between them, trying to pull them apart.
Get off of him!
And then, in doing so, Reginald Sr. smacked me.
Mom, are you okay? Get off of him! Stop!
And the next thing I know, Reginald Jr. was on top of Reginald Sr.
It's not worth it. Get off of him!
And then Vaughn, all they were trying to do was wrestle him down to keep him from hitting anybody. After everything was over, all I could, hear my husband say was, you're dead meat, y'all dead meat, you're dead meat.
You shouldn't have done that.
That's the final straw. I'm done with it. Him jumping on the kids like that, I'm not having this. I'm not subjecting them to this. They didn't do anything to deserve any of this.
I'm done.
You think you're done, Reggie. This is over.
I told Reggie that I'm getting a divorce. I can't do this anymore. We already have a place, so you're the one that needs to go. Here's some money for you, traveling money. Go as far as it'll take you. Bye. And he didn't leave. He never went anywhere. And I told the kids, I said, okay, from now on, when you go to school, do not come home till you know that I'm home from work, because I can't protect you if I'm not here. I do know that in my mind, I felt like, okay, once I get this divorce, you definitely have to go because you can't stay here. The divorce papers were delivered, but I didn't know that they were delivered. He never said anything to me. I think he thought that I was not going to do that. At that point, things had kind of calmed down. We hadn't had any other incidents. When I left work, I was gonna go do something else, and I don't remember what that was, but in a voice, go home. This voice, go home, go home. And so that's what I did. I went home. We had a little dog, Cotton, and he didn't come to the door. The house was quiet. There was some music on, but it was really, really low. I thought, well, maybe Reggie was listening to it, but didn't hear him, didn't see him. He wasn't anywhere in the house. So I decided that I needed to check on the kids and see what they're doing and get them something to eat. Well, their door to the bedroom was closed. So I opened the door. You know, I saw one in the bed. I said, oh, them sleepyheads, they're still in the bed.
Boys, come on now with the games.
And I said, hey, sleepyheads, y'all need to get up. It's in the afternoon. You done slept all day. What's up? Nobody was responding. So then I go in the room. And Reggie Jr.'s arm is up like this, you know, and I'm looking. And then that's when I saw the bullet hole in his head. I heard somebody scream, but I don't know who it was. But in actuality, it was me. And then I looked up, and then I saw Vaughn had a bullet hole in his head. I think everything was surreal then. I turned around, and I looked at Niarco's. I pulled the covers back, and I saw his brains everywhere. And I just lost it. I'm not gonna make it. So, I'm sorry, I gotta let it. I called the police. I told them who I was. I told them my address. I told them my husband killed my children. He said help. I just was like frozen. And then from frozen to disbelief to, oh, where's Reggie? That was my thought. I'm like, he's got to be here somewhere. And I just told the police, I'll be standing in the middle of the street. I got to get out of here because I don't know where he is and I could be next. I told him my husband killed my children. And I don't know where he is. And everything else is pretty much a blur. I never went back into the house. A whole bunch of things was going through my head, but mostly disbelief. It's not my boys. This happens to other people. Doesn't happen to you. They're gonna get up and walk away. You know, this is a movie. This can't be happening. This is a picture of Reggie Jr., very studious. He's very kind-hearted. He'd help anybody with anything. He had this little crooked smile, you know, which let me know that you're up to something you're not supposed to be doing, but you don't want me to know what it is. This is Vaughn, my second oldest. He was the shy one. He was always keeping his hair so neat. And then it didn't take but a little bit of wind, it would be all over the place. This is my mischievous one. This is Niarco's. And you can tell by that smile, you never know what he's thinking. He didn't do anything bad, but he was always doing something. It makes me sad to think about them and that I can't hold them. It's very, very painful. And it's something that you never get over. I didn't know where he was. He had a gun and probably still had it. So if he could get close enough in the proximity of where I am, I could be next. My now brother-in-law sat there with a shotgun, literally, across his knees until they found Reggie. Somebody knocks on the door saying, "It's the police, can we come in?" He had been captured and they were bringing him back, and he was in Utah. I don't know where he was going. They told me that he had 2 baggage claim tickets, but he was only claiming 1 suitcase. He did not indicate that there was another bag that had been checked under the bus, and that's where the gun was.
I want to see him.
He claims to this day that he didn't do it, but who else? Who else would? Who else would have a reason to?
Is that correct, ma'am?
He's sitting there, I'm looking at him.
Ma'am.
Then I'm answering questions.
Yes, that's correct.
But the whole time I was looking at him, I was just thinking, can I reach him? Can I get to him before they get to me? You know, how far away is he really? You know, how much damage can I do if I do get to him? Will it be enough to end his life? Give me the opportunity to get to him for 2 seconds. That's all I need is 2 seconds. And we won't have to have a trial. We won't have to have anything. And I'm willing to go to jail for that because I have nothing to live for. When I heard that he had been found guilty and was sentenced to death, I had a sense of relief that I would have justice for my boys. This is the shirt that I had on. We wore it in hopes that if Reggie would see us, he would see these shirts and he would know that we were there supporting, that justice was finally being done for these boys. We took our seats and we just kind of held each other's hand, you know, and just sat there and waited. The warden did ask him, did he have any last words? And he said no. But one of the last gestures that he made was to stick up both middle fingers. And that was his message, and made a very hard, conscious effort to make sure that they remained up throughout the whole ordeal. So we just kind of just sat there and, you know, trying to stay composed. That was the longest 10 minutes of my life. And then it was over. Finally, you get to know what it feels like not to draw another breath. And you don't get the chance to hurt anybody else ever again. And hopefully you'll rest in hell. When it was very, very raw, I was very, very angry. And so I lashed out, you know, at people that really didn't deserve it. I had to learn how to stop doing that. I did meet someone I never thought I would. I met him the same year that I lost my children, and then I started dating him the year after. We were together 34 years before he passed. He had 3 children, 3 boys. And these boys are still in my life today. So that in itself has also helped me to get through the last 36 years. But I don't think you ever cry enough. These are the headstones. I wanted miracles in the middle so his brothers could protect him. The inscription on there is, always on our minds, forever in our hearts. My babies.
Title: Cold Case. The Vanishing of Lily Monroe. They still call it the night the town stopped breathing. One quiet Friday in late September, a 17-year-old girl walked out of a neon-lit diner on the edge of a highway, crossed an almost empty parking lot, and vanished between 2 pools of sodium orange light. No scream, no struggle, no camera footage. Just a red jacket, a blue car, and a strip of asphalt that would become the center of a story Maple Ridge, Pennsylvania, has never escaped. What began as a missing persons call would soon be known by 3 blunt words. The Lily Case. Friday, September 28, 2001. The Ridgeway Diner's night shift was winding down. Inside, the clatter of plates and low murmur of voices sounded like any other late shift at the end of a long week. The security camera above the cash register captured it all in grainy, humming black and white. Waitresses wiping tables, a cook scraping the grill, a couple arguing softly in a corner booth, a trucker hunched over pie and coffee. Somewhere in the frame, moving quickly as always, is Lily Monroe, tying her apron, scribbling a note, laughing at something the cook says. It is all so ordinary that you almost miss the moment when everything stops being. The tape shows Lily stepping away from the counter, untying her apron, folding it in half and then in half again with the practiced movements of someone who has done this 100 times. At 10:42 p.m., she leans over to the old analog time clock, slides her card in, and punches out with a dull, hollow click. She shrugs on her red jacket, slings a worn backpack over one shoulder, calls something over her shoulder that the microphone doesn't catch, and pushes open the back door. A small brass chime rings as it swings shut behind her. The camera keeps recording the doorway for a few seconds, as if it expects her to come back. She doesn't. Inside, the tape rolls on. Outside, there is no tape at all. Behind the diner, the world shrinks to concrete, light, and dark. 3 tall lamps buzz over a cracked parking lot, casting pale circles that leave long gaps of shadow between them. One lamp flickers in an uneven rhythm, blinking the far end of the lot in and out of existence. At the very edge of that light stands a battered blue Honda Civic, the kind you barely notice in daylight and never look at twice. The woods press in at the lot's border, a ragged line of trees and brush. And high on the back wall of the diner, a single security camera points stubbornly at the loading bay, blind to the car, blind to the trees, blind to whatever is about to happen. According to the time card, Lily walked out at 10:42. According to her mother, she was supposed to be home by 11 o'clock. According to the story Maple Ridge told itself about safety and routine, nothing catastrophic was supposed to happen in those 18 minutes. That narrow slice of time between end of shift and home safe would become the most examined gap in the town's history. A window where every second feels important and none of them can be seen. The last people to see her alive remember details that seemed meaningless at the time and radioactive later. The cook says she complained about being tired and joked about nearly burning the last order of pancakes. A trucker at the counter recalls her topping off his coffee and rolling her eyes at her own yawning, saying she had a math test on Monday. A group of high school kids in a corner booth remember her dropping the check, teasing them about the mess of napkins they left behind, and still wishing them a good night after they stiffed her on the tip. No one remembers a strange car waiting outside. No one remembers a tense phone call, a hurried glance at the clock, a look of fear. She tied her apron, punched out, and walked toward the back door like she'd done 100 times before. At 11:07 p.m., 15 minutes after Lily should have been stepping through the front door of the Monroe house, her mother picked up the phone. Karen Monroe had told herself to wait. 5 minutes. 10. Maybe Lily stopped for gas. Maybe she was dropping off a coworker. Maybe there was traffic on Route 17. But the house stayed too quiet, the driveway stayed too empty, and the clock at the end of the hallway ticked a little too loudly. Karen dialed the diner, pressing the phone hard against her ear. The night manager would later describe her voice as polite but tight, like she was trying not to sound scared. She asked if Lily had left on time, if she was still there, if maybe she'd decided to stay and help clean up. The manager glanced at the schedule at the time card slot at the break room. "She left 15-20 minutes ago," he said, the words sounding harmless as they left his mouth. "She must be on her way." That calm, reasonable sentence bought the next hour. By midnight, calm and reasonable were no longer convincing. Lily's phone went straight to voicemail. Her friends hadn't seen her at the gas station where they sometimes met after shifts. There were no new messages, no explanation, just a black, empty notification screen and the thud of a mother's heartbeat in her ears. Karen called again, this time without the mask of politeness. "Something is wrong. Please check. Really check." The night manager stepped out into the cold air, the door swinging shut behind him. The hum of the lamps filled the lot with a low, electric buzz. His breath showed in thin white plumes. He walked across the cracked asphalt, past the dumpsters, past the loading bay, toward the far corner where the trees leaned in. Under the flickering lamp, he saw it. The blue Honda Civic, alone, wrong, sitting exactly where Lily had left it. A film of condensation clouded the inside of the windows. The driver's door was closed, the windows rolled up. He cupped his hands against the glass and peered inside. Fast food wrapper in the cup holder. A pair of cheap sunglasses on the passenger seat. No backpack. No movement. No Lily. The first real chill went through him then, quick and deep. At 12:23 a.m., the first police units rolled into the Ridgeway's back lot. Red and blue lights bouncing off the diner's rear wall and the slick surfaces of parked cars. Maple Ridge officers were used to traffic tickets, noise complaints, the occasional break-in. They were not used to an empty car and a missing girl where there should have been a boring end to a boring shift. Some clung stubbornly to the idea that they would find her smoking behind the dumpsters, or arguing with a boyfriend at the edge of the woods, embarrassed but unharmed. The longer they walked the lot, the harder it was to pretend. The reports from that night read like a checklist that never hits what it's aiming for. Vehicle inspected. No signs of forced entry. Personal property not visible. Exterior lighting operational. One lamp intermittently flickering. Rear door to business functioning properly. Wooded area behind lot checked at perimeter. No obvious disturbance. On paper, it looks neat, methodical, under control. On the ground, it looked like officers tracing the outline of a hole in reality, trying to find something solid to step on. Under the harsh white glare of the cruiser spots, Karen answered the same questions over and over. Yes, Lily had a boyfriend from the next town over. No, they hadn't been fighting. Yes, she sometimes stayed out late with friends, but she always called. No, she hadn't talked about running away, hadn't packed a bag, hadn't asked odd questions about disappearing. She wasn't depressed. She wasn't angry. She wasn't planning an escape. She wouldn't just leave her car. Karen kept repeating, the sentence slicing sharper each time. She wouldn't just leave her car and disappear. By 2 a.m., the Ridgeway's back lot was no longer just a place where staff smoked between orders and truckers parked for coffee. Yellow crime scene tape stretched in a rough rectangle, fluttering in the night breeze. A K-9 unit arrived from a neighboring town, tires crunching over gravel. The dog jumped from the back of the SUV, tail high, leash taut, unaware that its work tonight would become one more unsettling line in the story. The dog picked up Lily's scent easily at the back door, nose low, body confident. It trotted across the concrete, following the invisible trail straight to the driver's side of the Civic. Its tail wagged, its movements sure. Then it followed the scent past the rear bumper and stopped. The body language changed. The confidence drained away. The dog turned in a small, uncertain circle, sniffed the air, whined. The handler reset, starting again from the door. Same result. From the side of the building. Same result. From the grassy edge where the lot met the trees. Same result. Every path led to the same spot on the asphalt 10 feet behind the car and died there. No trail into the woods. No scent leading back toward the road. No clear direction of travel. Just an invisible wall in the middle of a lit parking lot, marked by nothing more than an oil stain and a crushed cigarette butt. The phrase that made it into the official report was area of scent loss. Two clean, clinical words that did nothing to explain the feeling of standing in that circle of light, knowing a 17-year-old girl had been there and was now nowhere. No struggle, no drag marks, no blood, no discarded belongings. Nothing for the camera that didn't exist, nothing for the dog to follow, nothing for anyone to hold on to except the certainty that she had not simply walked away. In houses across Maple Ridge, people would later try to imagine that moment as they learned the story piece by piece. Parents thought about their own kids coming home from late shifts, their shoes squeaking on kitchen tile, their keys rattling in the door. Teenagers thought about Lily's fast stride through school hallways, her loud laugh, the way she waved across a crowded cafeteria. Everyone pictured the same image. The diner's back lot under the buzzing lamps, the far corner by the trees, the lonely blue car that should not have been empty. By late afternoon, the search had stretched out beyond the tape. Volunteers showed up before anyone had time to organize them. Off-duty firefighters, nurses between shifts, neighbors in work boots and jackets, classmates in hoodies. Lines of people moved through the woods behind the diner, stumbling over roots, pushing through wet underbrush, calling Lily's name until it sounded strange coming out of their own mouths. Officers checked drainage ditches, culverts, and abandoned sheds along the highway shoulder. Every discarded bag, every shape in the brush, every patch of disturbed ground lasted a few seconds as a possibility before being crossed off as nothing. The first press conference took place at 5:30 that evening on the steps of the Maple Ridge Police Station. The chief stood behind a portable podium, the county sheriff at his shoulder, both men looking older than they had the day before. Camera lights from a regional news crew washed their faces in flat white, deepening the lines of fatigue around their eyes. Microphones angled up at them like questions. "We are treating this as a missing persons case with suspicious circumstances," the chief said, reading carefully from a sheet of paper he held in both hands. "We are exploring all possibilities. We ask the public to contact us with any information about the area of the Ridgeway Diner between 10:30 and 11 p.m. last night, no matter how insignificant it may seem." He did not say the word that was sitting heavy in everyone's mind, but when the segment aired on the 6 o'clock news, it appeared in bold text along the bottom of the screen anyway. Possible abduction. In living rooms and bars, in grocery store aisles and church parking lots, those two words began to circulate in low, disbelieving voices. Possible abduction. Here, on Route 17. At the diner where people stopped after church, where kids worked summer shifts, where the coffee was always too strong and the floor was always a little sticky. Each repetition chipped away at the idea that Maple Ridge was somehow exempt from the kind of stories you read about and then turn the page on. By the time the sun slid down behind the tree line and the sky turned from bruised purple to black, the Ridgeway's red neon sign still buzzed over the front entrance. But nobody saw it the same way. The diner was no longer just a late-night stop for truckers and teenagers. It was the backdrop shot for every news report, the landmark in every whispered conversation, the place people pictured when they heard Lily's name. In the days and years that followed, the file on her disappearance would thicken with reports, interviews, theories, and dead ends, the words "the Lily Monroe case" stamped hard across the front. But on that first night, standing around a taped-off parking lot and a silent blue car, Maple Ridge didn't know any of that yet. All the town knew was that a girl had gone out the back door of a diner and never come home, and that whatever this was, it was bigger than a late shift gone wrong. This was no longer just a missing girl. It was the beginning of a cold case. Morning came with an eerie calm, like the town itself was holding its breath. The first sunlight spilled across the Ridgeway Diner's parking lot, catching on the yellow tape that fluttered weakly in the early wind. It was still there, the blue Honda Civic, glistening with dew, surrounded by cruisers and cones, its doors sealed and tagged. Overnight, the diner had gone from a late-night refuge to a locked-down scene of dread. The sweet, greasy smell of syrup and coffee had been replaced by the metallic tang of tension. Reporters had started to gather before sunrise, their satellite vans idling like predators waiting for motion. Inside the diner, the air was heavy with silence. The waitresses who had worked with Lily sat huddled at a corner booth, their hands wrapped around untouched mugs of coffee. None of them could quite believe that the girl they joked with, the one who sang along to the radio while refilling sugar dispensers, was now the name on the front page of the morning paper. The headline was blunt, almost cruel in its simplicity. Local teen vanishes. Police suspect foul play. Detective Alan Briggs arrived just after 8. A veteran of 20 years, Briggs was the kind of man who didn't waste words. He'd seen his share of cases, runaways, drug overdoses, domestic disasters, but something about this one tugged differently. Maybe it was the precision of it. No scene, no noise, no trace. Just absence. That kind of clean disappearance was rare. Too clean. He stepped under the tape, notebook in hand, eyes sweeping the lot as if the answer might still be hiding in plain sight. He crouched by the car. Dew pooled on the hood, sparkling in the morning light. He noted the position of the tires, the distance from the curb. Everything looked undisturbed. The driver's seat was pushed slightly forward, the way a shorter person would adjust it. Lily's height matched that. The keys were gone. Purse gone. Phone gone. But the backpack, the one she always carried, nowhere. It wasn't in the car. It wasn't at home. It wasn't anywhere. Whoever took her, Briggs muttered, knew what they were doing. At 9:15, forensics began their slow ballet. Cameras flashed. Gloves snapped. They lifted prints from the door handle, the trunk, the steering wheel. Most belonged to Lily, a few partial smudges impossible to read. The interior was wiped nearly spotless. Too spotless for a teenager's car, Briggs thought. The seat pocket was empty. No receipts. No wrappers. No trace of clutter. Whoever she met that night, if she met anyone, had either taken her with surgical precision or cleaned up afterward like a ghost. By mid-morning, the diner was closed to the public. Officers went door to door along Route 17, asking the same tired questions. Did you see a girl, about 5'4", red jacket, leaving the diner around 10:45? Most shrugged. A few tried to help. One man thought he saw her walking along the shoulder near the old billboard. Another swore he heard a car door slam. But the accounts blurred together. Foggy, uncertain, tainted by the power of suggestion. In her living room, Karen Monroe sat on the edge of the couch, a blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her husband, Peter, paced in silence. The air smelled like stale coffee and fear. The phone rang constantly. Reporters, neighbors, friends pretending they had something new to offer. Every ring made Karen flinch. Every pause in the conversation made her hope for good news that never came. At noon, Detective Briggs knocked gently on their door. He introduced himself quietly, his tone careful, professional but not cold. He'd been in enough homes like this to know that words could cut deeper than any crime scene. "We're doing everything we can," he said. "We're expanding the search perimeter. We've got a K-9 team combing the forest line, and we'll have state police assisting soon. We'll find her." Karen's eyes were hollow. "You don't know that," she said softly. Briggs didn't argue. Outside, the town was changing. Posters went up within hours. Lily's photo printed in hurried batches, taped to lampposts, pinned to supermarket boards, stapled onto telephone poles. The image was one everyone recognized. Lily at her high school graduation, grinning under a blue cap, eyes bright and certain. Beneath it, in bold black letters, "Missing Lily Monroe, age 17. Last seen Sept. 28, 10:42 p.m. at Ridgeway Diner. Any information, call Maple Ridge Police." The phones at the station rang nonstop. Tips, sightings, theories. 90% were noise, wrong girls, false memories, dreams dressed up as clues. But a few were worth chasing. At 1:45 p.m., a woman named Denise Lang called in from a farmhouse 2 miles west of the diner. She said she'd been letting her dog out around 11 the night before when she heard a car racing down the dirt road behind her property. Fast, erratic, throwing gravel. It was dark, she said. No headlights at first. Then, just before the bend, the lights came on. Blinded me for a second. It was an old truck, I think. Maybe green? Or dark blue. Briggs drove out himself. The road was narrow, lined with trees. Tire tracks crisscrossed the dirt, but recent rain had blurred them. Still, something caught his eye. A deep indentation near the ditch, too sharp to be old. He knelt beside it, brushing away the loose soil. Recent, he muttered. Less than 12 hours. He radioed for photos, then followed the curve where the road met an abandoned gas station. The sign had fallen years ago. The windows were boarded, the roof sagging. And there, half hidden under a rusted oil drum, was a scrap of red fabric. Torn, frayed, stained with something dark. He called for evidence collection immediately. Under the camera's flash, the color looked almost brown, but up close, unmistakably red. A piece of a jacket. Back at the diner, news crews were growing louder. The first national outlet had arrived. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone in uniform. Words like kidnapping, predator, mystery spilled from their scripts, feeding the story before the police could even confirm it. By evening, the investigation center had moved to the community hall. Maps covered the walls. Pins marked routes, distances, search zones. Volunteers signed up in clusters, whispering their fears as if speaking them too loudly might make them real. Briggs stood over the map, eyes on the red circles radiating from the diner. She didn't walk away, he said quietly. Someone stopped her between the door and her car. An officer nodded. But nobody heard anything. Nobody saw a struggle. Then it was fast, Briggs said. Planned. Someone knew the lighting, knew the blind spots. Maybe even knew her schedule. A name began to circulate. Ryan Hale, 22, local mechanic, sometimes boyfriend, sometimes ex. He'd dated Lily over the summer. They'd fought, broken up, gotten back together, the usual pattern. He'd stopped by the diner a few times, enough for coworkers to notice. When detectives knocked on his door that night, his reaction was sharp, too sharp. What do you mean she's missing? He snapped. I haven't seen her since last week. Briggs watched him carefully. The apartment was small, cluttered with engine parts and takeout boxes. A framed photo of Lily sat on the counter, half covered by mail. You didn't call her yesterday? Briggs asked. Ryan hesitated. Maybe once, but she didn't pick up. I figured she was working. Where were you between 10 and 11 p.m.? Home, he said quickly. Watching TV. Anyone who can confirm that? Ryan's jaw tightened. No, I was alone. They took his statement, his phone, and his car. The Civic's interior was clean, too clean again. No mud. No debris. No trace of her. He volunteered for a polygraph, passed it, but something about him still itched in Briggs's mind. Guilt? Or just fear of being the last name tied to hers? Meanwhile, forensic results trickled in. The scrap of fabric from the gas station matched Lily's jacket. Fibers identical. The stain was blood. Not enough for a DNA profile, but enough to confirm what no one wanted to say aloud. That night, Maple Ridge gathered at the church for a vigil. Hundreds of candles flickered, their light trembling against stained glass. Karen Monroe stood at the front, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. She thanked the crowd, her voice steady but hollow. When she said Lily's name, a collective hush fell, as if the town itself bowed its head. Outside, Detective Briggs watched from the shadows near the steps. The sound of hymns drifted into the cold air. He looked out over the faces, the tears, the fear. He knew this was the start of something that wouldn't end soon. Missing persons turned cold fast, and cold cases had a way of haunting everything they touched. By 10 p.m., back at the station, Briggs spread the photos across his desk. The lot, the car, the torn jacket, the truck tracks, each one a fragment of a story that refused to tell itself. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "Who are you?" he whispered to the darkness beyond the desk lamp. "And how did you make her disappear without a trace?" Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, tapping against the glass in rhythmic bursts. Across town, the neon sign of the Ridgeway Diner flickered once, twice before going dark, as if the building itself had decided it was time to stop pretending life inside it was normal. In the days that followed, more leads came and went. A blurry figure on a gas station camera, a rumor about a truck scene near the old quarry, a pair of boot prints that led nowhere. Every path curved back into silence. But one small detail stayed buried in the chaos until much later. An overlooked entry in the diner's phone log. At 10:35 p.m., 7 minutes before Lily clocked out, a call came in from an unknown number. The receiver picked up for 11 seconds, then hung up. No voice recorded, no callback made. The phone sat on the counter that night, inches from where Lily had been tying her apron. No one ever remembered hearing it ring. And somewhere, out on Route 17, the dark road swallowed another secret. The case of Lily Monroe was no longer a disappearance. It was becoming a mystery with teeth. By the third day, Maple Ridge was no longer the same town. The white picket fences and pumpkin-decked porches had become silent witnesses, their windows lit late into the night, waiting for the sound of police radios and not knowing whether to hope or dread it. The story had gone national. Teen disappears from small-town diner, cold case in the making. Satellite trucks lined Main Street, cables snaking across the sidewalks like black veins. The townspeople walked slower, spoke softer. Every whisper began with one question. "Where's Lily?" Detective Alan Briggs had barely slept. His office looked like a storm had passed through. Maps covered in red circles, files stacked on every flat surface, empty coffee cups lining the windowsill. He'd read Lily's file a dozen times. Honor student, part-time waitress, clean record, no history of depression, no reason to vanish. The more he read, the less sense it made. People didn't just dissolve into thin air. At 6:15 a.m., the lab called with preliminary results from the Civic. One partial fingerprint on the exterior of the passenger door didn't match Lily or anyone in her family. Too partial for an identification, but enough to confirm someone else had touched the car recently. That, coupled with the torn jacket found near the old gas station, painted a clearer and darker picture. Briggs drove to the site himself as dawn broke. The air smelled like wet earth and rust. The old gas station stood hollow and silent, its sign creaking in the wind. He walked the perimeter slowly, eyes scanning every corner. A flash of color caught his eye, faint tire tread embedded in the soft soil near the ditch. He crouched. It wasn't from Lily's Civic. The pattern was larger, heavier truck tires. He marked the prints, measured the span. 3/4 ton, maybe older, he muttered. Not new, probably all-terrain. He looked up, following the direction they pointed. They led away from the road, curving toward the forest beyond the bend. He called in a search team. By 9 a.m., officers and volunteers combed the woods behind the gas station. The trees closed in, thick and damp, muffling every sound but the crack of twigs and the crunch of boots. One officer called out. A small patch of disturbed ground about 30 feet in. Not a grave, more like a drag mark, a streak in the dirt, faint but deliberate. And beside it, a cigarette but crushed flat. Briggs bagged it himself. He didn't smoke, but he recognized the type, Marlboro Red, the kind older mechanics favored. His mind flicked involuntarily to Ryan Hale. Back in town, Ryan was already on edge. He'd lost his job at the auto shop after reporters swarmed the parking lot. The whispers followed him everywhere. At the gas station, the grocery store, the diner where he could no longer walk through the door. "They're saying I did it," he told Briggs during his second interview, voice shaking with frustration. "You think I'm that stupid? That cruel?" Briggs didn't answer directly. "You said you were home that night," he replied. Your neighbor says he saw your truck leaving around 10:15. Ryan's eyes flared. He's lying. He hates me. Why would he lie? Because he's bored. Because everyone's looking for someone to blame. Briggs leaned in slightly. You drive a green pickup, right? Dark blue, Ryan snapped. And I didn't go near that diner. The detective's gaze held steady. Then you won't mind if we check your tires. Ryan hesitated. Go ahead. Forensics compared the tire impressions from his truck to the tracks near the gas station. Close but not identical. The spacing was off, the pattern worn differently. It ruled him out. For now. Still, Briggs couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan knew more than he admitted. The way he avoided Lily's name. The way his hands trembled when he talked about her jacket. If you think of anything, Briggs said before leaving. Even something small, you call me. Ryan didn't reply. Meanwhile, the media storm had reached its fever pitch. National anchors were camped outside the police station, speculating on everything from abduction rings to serial predators. The Ridgeway Diner cold case. They called it, as if the investigation were already over. Every word they broadcast deepened the panic. Parents walked their kids to school again. Teenagers stopped going out after dark. The diner's owner, a gray-haired man named Frank Yates, announced he was closing indefinitely. Too many cameras, he said, eyes wet. Too many ghosts. 3 days later, the first real break came from an unlikely place. A truck stop 30 miles east. A security camera caught a low-resolution image of a dark vehicle pulling in around midnight on the night of the disappearance. The driver wore a hooded sweatshirt. The passenger door opened briefly, then shut. The car stayed only 4 minutes before speeding off toward the interstate. The timestamp, 11:17 p.m. The footage was grainy, but the license plate, though partially obscured, showed the same county prefix as Maple Ridge. The make, a 1980s Ford F-150, the same tire with Briggs had seen near the gas station. The search widened instantly. DMV records listed 12 similar trucks registered within the county. Briggs and his team started knocking on doors, one by one. Most were dead ends, old farmers, retired factory workers, vehicles that hadn't run in years. But one stood out. A man named Gerald Price, 46, part-time trucker, lived alone on the outskirts of town. His record wasn't clean, 2 DUIs, 1 domestic disturbance. When Briggs arrived at his property, the first thing he noticed was the silence. The house sat half-hidden by tall weeds, a no trespassing sign nailed crookedly to a tree. The truck, an aging green Ford, was parked in the dirt driveway. Its front bumper dented, one headlight cracked. Briggs walked a slow circle around it. Mud caked the tires. The pattern matched perfectly. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Curtain twitched. Then the door opened a crack. Price stood there in a sweat-stained undershirt, eyes bloodshot, stubble thick on his jaw. What's this about? Briggs showed his badge. We're investigating the disappearance of Lily Monroe. Price's brow furrowed. Who? 17. Works at the Ridgeway Diner. A pause. Don't know her. Briggs nodded toward the truck. That yours? Yeah. What of it? Mind if we take a look? Price smirked, showing yellowed teeth. You got a warrant? Not yet, Briggs said evenly. But I can get one. Price's smirk faltered. I told you, I don't know any girl. He started to close the door, but Briggs wedged his foot against the frame. You were seen driving that truck near Route 17 the night she disappeared. That's bull, Price snapped. I was home all night. Anyone who can confirm that? He hesitated. No, I live alone. The conversation ended there, but Briggs left with enough unease to justify the warrant. By evening, deputies returned to search the property. Inside, the house smelled of oil and damp wood. They found beer cans, old newspapers, hunting knives, and a stack of VHS tapes labeled with dates, but none from the night in question. Out back, behind the shed, they found something else. A torn plastic tarp, streaked with what looked like dried mud, and something darker beneath. Tests confirmed it, human blood. Forensics couldn't immediately match it to Lily, the sample was too degraded. But the direction of the case had shifted. Price was brought in for questioning, his hands cuffed, his eyes burning with anger. "You're wasting your time," he growled. "You want monsters? Look somewhere else." Briggs studied him quietly. "Where were you between 10 and 11 that night?" Price leaned back, lips curling. "Drinking. Alone. Like I always do." Briggs laid the photos on the table, the gas station, the truck tracks, the red jacket. "We found this near your property line." For the first time, Price's eyes flickered. "Lots of trash out there. Not mine. Your truck matches the footage. Then your camera's lying." They kept him for 48 hours. No confession. No solid link. Without DNA confirmation, they had to let him go. Price walked out of the station under a cloud of flashing cameras, grinning at the reporters. "Told you," he said. "You're chasing ghosts." But Briggs wasn't done. He sent every piece of evidence, the tarp, the cigarette butt, the jacket fibers, to the state lab for advanced testing. He had a feeling something would eventually talk. Days turned to weeks. The leaves along Route 17 began to fall, turning the road into a tunnel of rust and gold. The posters faded, edges curling in the damp. The Monroe family held another vigil, their candles dimmer this time, their hope thinner. The case slowed. Leads dried up. Tips became superstition and rumor. By mid-November, the town began to move on, or at least pretend to. The diner reopened under new management. A new waitress worked the counter where Lily once stood. People smiled again, but it was a different kind of smile, the kind that never reached the eyes. And then, just when silence had settled in for good, something surfaced. A fisherman at Willow Creek, 6 miles north of town, called in after finding a backpack tangled in the reeds. It was faded, waterlogged, the zippers corroded. Inside were textbooks, a compact mirror, a wallet with an ID still legible. Lily Monroe. The backpack had been underwater for weeks, maybe months. But one thing was clear. It hadn't drifted there naturally. The zippers were half open, the contents too neatly arranged. Someone had placed it there. When Briggs held it in his hands, he noticed one detail that froze him. Inside the front pocket, wrapped in a piece of wet napkin, was a small metal key. Not a car key, not a house key, an old locker key, stamped with a number barely visible under the rust. 17B. No one recognized it. Not from the diner, not from her school. But Briggs had seen that brand before, heavy industrial, used in motels and storage facilities. He turned the key over slowly, its weight solid and cold in his palm. Somewhere, he thought, there was a lock waiting to be opened. And whatever was behind it was the next piece of the Lily Monroe mystery. The locker key sat on Detective Alan Briggs' desk like a loaded question. Small, rusted, stamped with the number 17B. A piece of metal that had survived weeks underwater, untouched by time but heavy with implication. Briggs had stared at it for hours, flipping it between his fingers as if it might whisper its story. Somewhere in Maple Ridge, or maybe beyond, there was a lock that key could open. And whatever waited inside, he knew, would change everything. By dawn, he had a plan. He started with every motel, storage yard, and truck stop within a 50-mile radius. The problem was, half of them had closed years ago. Maple Ridge had been shrinking for decades. Businesses fading, signs rusting, roofs caving in under the weight of disinterest. But Briggs was methodical. He checked each one, crossing off names, calling property owners, pushing through the bureaucratic sludge that slowed every search. At 11:45 a.m., he got his first lead. A clerk from the old Mapleview storage on Highway 9 said the numbering system on their lockers used the same format, letter number combinations, identical stamping style. The facility had closed in 1999 but still stood, half buried under weeds and broken concrete. The owner, an elderly man named Harold Denton, kept the keys in a tin box under his desk. When Briggs showed him the photo of the rusted key, Denton frowned. "That's one of ours," he said. "But that locker hasn't been opened in years. Might be empty. Might be worse." Worse. That word hung in the air like static. By 3 p.m., Briggs and 2 officers arrived at the abandoned storage yard. The gate hung off its hinges, creaking in the wind. Rows of metal doors stretched out in silence, their paint peeling like old scabs. Birds scattered from the roof as they entered. The place smelled of damp metal, oil, and the slow decay of forgotten things. Locker 17B was near the back, its number half hidden by grime. Briggs knelt, wiping away dirt with his sleeve. The key slid in easily, almost too easily, as if it had been waiting for years. He turned it once. The lock gave a reluctant click. The metal door groaned open. Inside was darkness. He switched on his flashlight. The beam sliced through the dust, catching on a pile of old tarps and a wooden crate in the corner. No smell of rot, no sign of life, but the air was thick, stale, wrong. Briggs stepped forward cautiously. The crate was nailed shut. He pried it open with his pocket knife. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them, stacks of Polaroids bound with rubber bands, their edges curled with age. Faces stared up at him. Women, mostly, some smiling, some candid, all taken without context. Park benches, grocery aisles, sidewalks, parking lots. Every one of them had that same off-angle composition, the kind that made it feel like someone was watching from a distance. Briggs's heart sank. He called for evidence bags. The photos were numbered on the back. Dates scrawled in messy handwriting, some as old as 1993. He shuffled through until one stopped him cold. A shot of the Ridgeway Diner's parking lot, taken at night. The same orange lights, the same angle. In the center, a girl in a red jacket, head turned slightly as if she'd heard something behind her. The date written below, September 28th, 01. The night Lily disappeared. Briggs's throat went dry. Whoever took these photos had been stalking her, maybe for weeks, maybe longer, and they hadn't just been watching Lily. Other girls appeared in the stack too, different towns, different years. Always the same distant focus. Always the same quiet menace. Forensics later confirmed what his gut already knew. Fingerprints on the Polaroids matched Gerald Price. Briggs drove straight to Price's house, no warning, no backup. He didn't care about protocol, not anymore. The sky had gone gray, wind whipping across the yard. Price was outside, hammering a sheet of plywood over his window. When he saw Briggs pull up, he froze. "What now?" he barked. Briggs stepped out, holding up the photograph of Lily. "You want to tell me how this ended up in your storage locker?" Price's face shifted, not surprise but calculation. "Never seen it," he said. "You leased the unit," Briggs shot back. "Under your name, your address. The key was found with Lily's belongings. You took those photos." Price's smirk returned, thin and crooked. "That's a lot of words for a picture of a parking lot." Briggs took a step closer. "You followed her, didn't you? You watched her every night from that lot. Maybe you waited until she was alone. Maybe you thought no one would care about a girl working a night shift. You picked your target like you always do." Price didn't blink. "You got a body?" Briggs's jaw tightened. "Not yet." "Then you got nothing." It took 6 officers to bring him in again. He shouted the whole way, voice echoing through the corridors of the station. "You're wasting time. You'll see. She ain't dead. You'll see." But this time, the evidence was enough to hold him. They searched his truck again, his shed, every inch of his property. Hidden in a false panel behind the wall of his workshop, they found a box lined with newspaper clippings, each one about missing girls from neighboring towns. 5 in total, none ever found. Each case labeled unsolved. Every clipping had one detail circled in red ink. No witnesses. The press went wild. Serial connection suspected in Maple Ridge cold case. The phrase Maple Ridge Monster spread through tabloids and TV anchors like a virus. People came to town just to see the diner, to take selfies under the flickering sign. The place had become a sideshow, tragedy turned spectacle. But Briggs didn't care about headlines. He wanted proof. Something undeniable. Something that would speak louder than Price's lies. Late that night, sitting alone in his office, he studied the photographs again. They weren't random. They were organized. Chronological. The earliest photos, 1993, were faded and clumsy. By 2001, they were precise, focused, controlled. The handwriting on the back changed slightly over time. Steadier, more deliberate. Whoever took them was documenting his work. Then Briggs noticed something odd. In the photo of the Ridgeway Diner, beyond Lily's figure, barely visible under the glow of a street lamp, was another car. A light-colored sedan, parked diagonally, almost hidden behind a dumpster. He zoomed in on the scan. The license plate was blurry, but not unreadable. He cross-checked the numbers. The car wasn't registered to Price. It wasn't registered to anyone in town. The record showed a woman named Ellen Carmichael, who had died 2 years before Lily vanished. Her car had been sold at auction to an unknown buyer. Price didn't act alone. The next morning, Briggs confronted him with the plate number. "Who drove the sedan, Gerald?" Price smiled slowly. "You think I'm the only one? Who was with you that night?" He leaned forward, eyes glinting. "You don't want that answer." For a moment, the room felt colder. Price refused to name anyone else. The DA pushed for charges, but the case was circumstantial. Photos weren't proof of murder. Without a body, without DNA, it was all shadow. The judge denied bail, but even from his cell, Price never stopped smiling. Then, 2 weeks later, he was gone. At 2:13 a.m., during a storm that knocked out half the county's power, Price was found dead in his cell, hanging from a strip of torn bedsheet tied to the bars. No note, no explanation, just a final smirk frozen on his face. The autopsy confirmed it, suicide. But Briggs didn't believe it. There was no despair in Price's last hours, no signs of panic. He'd eaten his dinner, joked with a guard, then asked for an extra blanket for the cold. He didn't seem like a man ready to die. The news hit the town like a gunshot. Some called it justice. Others called it closure. But to Briggs, it felt like theft. Price had taken his secrets with him. A week later, Briggs returned to the storage unit, hoping he'd missed something. The air was colder now, the walls slick with condensation. As he swept his flashlight across the empty space, something glimmered near the corner. A strip of tape he hadn't noticed before. He peeled it back. Underneath was another Polaroid, hidden against the wall. This one was different. It wasn't Lily. It was him, Detective Alan Briggs, standing outside the diner, talking to an officer. The photo was taken from a distance, through the window of a car. The handwriting on the back was familiar, Price's scrawl, but shakier. Still watching. Briggs's hand went cold. He scanned the corners of the locker again, the walls, the shadows. The realization hit him like a wave. Someone had been back here after Price's arrest. Someone who still had access to the unit. Someone who knew the game wasn't over. He pocketed the photo, locking the unit behind him. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and rust. The sky was bruised with storm clouds again, just like the night Lily vanished. Briggs climbed into his car, started the engine, and checked the rearview mirror. For a split second, under the flicker of lightning, he thought he saw movement. A figure standing by the fence, too still, too tall, watching. Then the sky went dark again, and the figure was gone. In the following weeks, the town tried to close the case, to brand it solved. But the key, the photographs, the missing accomplice, none of it fit neatly. Briggs couldn't stop thinking about the Polaroid hidden behind the wall. About the message. Still watching. Someone out there had picked up where Price left off. And in Maple Ridge, where the cold winds carried whispers down empty streets, another story was already beginning. One that would make the Lily Monroe disappearance feel like just the opening act. The cold case wasn't closed. It was waking up. Rain turned Maple Ridge into a mirror that night. Slick streets, blurry lights, reflections that seemed to move on their own. Detective Alan Briggs sat in his car outside the station, windshield wipers dragging back and forth with a tired rhythm. The photograph lay on the passenger seat under a plastic evidence sleeve. His own face caught mid-conversation, framed by the glow of the Ridgeway Diner. Underneath that single phrase, "Still watching." The letters were uneven, like they'd been written by a shaking hand or someone in a hurry. But the meaning was deliberate. It wasn't just a message. It was a threat. Briggs hadn't told the department yet. He wanted to think, to breathe, to figure out whether this was one last cruel trick from a dead man, or something worse, something alive. Price was gone. That part was undeniable. But the storage locker had been opened after his arrest. The tape residue was fresh, the dust disturbed. Someone else had been there. Someone who wanted him to find that photo. He stared at it again. The angle, the focus, it wasn't the same as the other Polaroids. The others had distance, a predator's patience. This one was closer, deliberate. Whoever took it had been just yards away. Close enough to see his badge. Close enough to see his eyes. By morning, the storm had rolled east, leaving behind a gray, washed-out sky. Briggs walked into the station carrying a thermos of black coffee and the photo in a sealed bag. The chief was waiting in his office, arms crossed. The local paper spread across his desk. The headline read, "Suspect dead, cold case ends in suicide." Ends, Briggs said bitterly, tossing the newspaper aside. It's not over. The chief frowned. Alan, the man's dead. We've got his prints on the Polaroids, his truck near the gas station, and a trail of missing girls tied to his property. The DA's already moving to close it. Briggs slid the photograph across the desk. Then explain this. The chief leaned forward, squinting. Is that you? It was taped inside the locker, after the arrest, maybe even after Price died. Silence stretched across the room. The chief rubbed his forehead. You're saying someone else is involved. I'm saying someone else is still out there, watching. He briefed the forensics team within the hour. The photo was dusted for prints. None. The ink was analyzed fresh, maybe a week old. Too recent to have been Price's. That meant someone else had access to the storage facility, either before the police sealed it or after. Briggs drove back to Maple View Storage himself. The place was still cordoned off, but the padlock on the main gate had been replaced. He walked the perimeter slowly, boots sinking into soft mud. Near the fence, half hidden in the tall grass, he found tire tracks, 2 sets, faint but visible. The newer ones were narrow, clean, likely from a compact car. Someone had parked here, just out of sight, after the investigation started. He called it in, but something deeper pulled at him. A question he couldn't shake. Why him? Why leave the photo for him? Unless this wasn't just a continuation. Unless it was personal. That evening, he spread every file across his dining table. Lily Monroe, Gerald Price, the earlier victims. Each line connected by red string, like arteries in a body that refused to die. Somewhere among these details was a pattern, something invisible under the surface. He started with the earliest photos. 1993, 1995, 1998. Always a small town, always a girl working nights, always near a highway. The victims weren't random. They were chosen for routine predictability. Lily fit the mold perfectly. But what connected Price to the others? He'd only lived in Maple Ridge since '99. The earlier photos predated him by years. Briggs froze. That meant the camera hand wasn't always his. He picked up the Polaroids again, side by side. In the early ones, the framing was clumsy, uncertain. By the late '90s, the shots grew sharper, more composed. A shift in skill. As if one person had taught another. A mentor and a student. Price wasn't the beginning. He was the continuation. At 9:42 p.m., Briggs called the State Archive. He asked for employment records from the old Evergreen Correctional Facility, closed in 1998. Price had done time there for assault in '97. Within minutes, a fax machine whirred to life in his office, spitting out a grainy page of personnel logs. There it was, Gerald Price, inmate 49301, cellmate, John Heller. Heller. The name sparked something faint in his memory. He dug through old missing person databases, cross-referencing with local addresses. And then it appeared a John M. Heller, released 1998, last known address, Willow Creek Trailer Park. the same area where Lily's backpack was found. Briggs's pulse quickened. He pulled the property records. Heller had disappeared in 2002. No forwarding address, no death certificate. Just gone. But his trailer still existed, listed under a lapse deed. By dawn, Briggs was standing in front of it. The place sagged under the weight of neglect. Broken windows, rusted steps, a mailbox stuffed with damp flyers. The air smelled of mildew and old cigarettes. He pushed the door open with a gloved hand. Inside was chaos. Overturned furniture, beer cans, mold-streaked wallpaper. But under the layer of dust, something caught his eye. A wall covered in newspaper clippings, taped in uneven rows. Every headline screamed the same theme. Missing, found dead. No leads. Women from towns stretching across 3 counties. And in the center, a single Polaroid. Lily Monroe. The same shot from the locker. The same date. Except this one had something scrawled across the bottom in red marker. You took her from me. Briggs felt his stomach tighten. You? Who? Price? Or him? He took a step back, scanning the room. On the kitchen counter, a cracked coffee mug lay beside a map of the county. Circles marked key locations: the diner, the gas station, Willow Creek. Another circle, drawn in darker ink, marked a spot further north, deep in the woods beyond Route 12. In the corner of the map, written in tiny block letters, were 3 words. The first one. Briggs called for backup, but he didn't wait. He drove north, following the back roads through the thickening forest until the pavement ended in gravel. The trees closed in, the canopy swallowing the sky. After half a mile, the road opened into a small clearing. A collapsed cabin stood at its center. Nothing but a skeleton of wood and nails. He stepped out, flashlight in hand. The silence was absolute. No birds, no wind. Just the faint hum of distant thunder. Inside the cabin, the floor was littered with debris, bottles, rags, pieces of broken mirror. But beneath a loose floorboard near the corner, he found what the map had promised. A shallow pit. Inside, a metal box, rusted and half-buried. He pried it open. Photographs again. Older this time. Black and white. The same women from the Polaroids, but younger. Some looked terrified, others unaware. And in one, clear as daylight, was Gerald Price, standing next to another man. Broad shoulders, balding, hard to make out the face but unmistakably real. On the back of the photo, written in neat handwriting, JH plus GP, 1996. John Heller, the mentor, the teacher. Price hadn't started the pattern. He'd learned it. Back at the station, Briggs laid the evidence out for the task force. We've been chasing a dead man, he said. But the real predator, the one who started all of this, he's still alive. And he's been watching us since day one. They ran Heller's name through every database. Nothing. No employment, no social security, no tax filings. It was like he'd evaporated. But his work, the photos, the notes, the patterns, lived on through Price and maybe through others. At 3 a.m., Briggs returned home. His house was dark except for the hallway lamp. He hung his coat, dropped his keys, and sat heavily on the couch. The exhaustion pressed into him like weight. He closed his eyes, just for a moment. When he opened them again, the house wasn't silent. Somewhere outside, a sound cut through the stillness. A slow, deliberate creak. He froze. Came again. The front porch. He reached for his gun, moved to the window, and parted the curtain just enough to see. Car sat across the street. Engine off. Headlights dim. He couldn't make out the driver, just a silhouette behind the glass. Watching. Then flash. A burst of white light, quick as lightning. Camera. He lunged for the door, but by the time he got outside, the car was already pulling away, taillights vanishing into the mist. He stood barefoot on the pavement, heart pounding, rain soaking through his shirt. On the porch railing, something fluttered. Polaroid, still developing. He picked it up. His own house, his own silhouette in the window caught mid-movement. And beneath it, scrawled in the same trembling handwriting, "You're next." The photo felt warm in his hand, the chemical smell sharp and new. Whoever had taken it was close, minutes away, maybe seconds. Briggs looked down the empty street, the wet asphalt stretching into the fog. Somewhere out there, the camera clicked again. Unseen, patient, hungry. The Maple Ridge cold case had never gone cold at all. It had just shifted focus. And now, Detective Alan Briggs was in the frame. The photo sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Wet Polaroid film, slowly darkening under the flicker of the overhead light. Detective Alan Briggs stood over it, fists clenched, breath shallow. His own reflection stared back at him from the glossy surface. Face pale, eyes hollow, body framed perfectly in the window of his own home. Beneath it, the scrawl glared like a whisper from the dark. "You're next." He'd spent 20 years studying crime scenes, tracing killers through their chaos. But this was different. This wasn't a message left for law enforcement. It was a message left for him. Whoever had taken that picture had stood outside his house, close enough to hear his breathing, close enough to know exactly when he would look out the window. That required precision, timing, obsession. Briggs pulled the blinds shut, checked every lock, and swept the house with his gun drawn. Nothing. No footprints in the yard. No tire marks on the street. Just rain washing everything away. By 4 a.m., the adrenaline had burned into exhaustion. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the photo under the lamplight. He couldn't go to the department, not yet. The chief would call it paranoia, the press would devour it, and whoever was out there would know they'd rattled him. He needed to think. He laid out the evidence again. The old photographs from the locker, the map from Heller's trailer, the key that started it all. Every line pointed back to the same thread, a predator who didn't kill for impulse but for ritual. One who had passed his habits to another. Heller had taught Price how to stalk, how to vanish, how to manipulate the story. But what if Heller had taught more than one student? That question stuck like a splinter. The next morning, he drove to the county morgue. Price's body was still there, awaiting transfer. The autopsy report listed cause of death as asphyxiation by hanging. Clean. Simple. But Briggs had seen hundreds of suicides in lockup, and this one didn't fit. He asked to see the body. The coroner hesitated. "Detective, he's—" "Open it," Briggs said. The zipper rasped open, revealing Price's face. Slack, pale, but strangely peaceful. No bruises on the knuckles. No rope burns on the palms. His neck showed the mark of the bedsheet, yes, but the pattern was wrong. Too smooth, too deliberate, like someone had staged it. Could this have been assisted? Briggs asked quietly. The coroner frowned. Possible, but without defensive wounds or fibers under the nails. Briggs cut him off. If you wanted it to look like a suicide, that's exactly what you'd clean. He stepped back from the table. Someone had silenced Price before he could talk. Someone who had access to the holding cells. By noon, he was back at the station, pulling logs from the night of Price's death. One guard on duty, Officer Randall Kemp, 6 years on the force, spotless record. Kemp had clocked out at 6 a.m., left town 2 days later for family emergency. Briggs stared at the report, unease twisting in his chest. He called the number on file. Disconnected. He called again, this time using the county dispatch line. The voice that answered wasn't family. It was a voicemail recording. "This number has been deactivated." Briggs slammed the phone down. Kemp wasn't gone for family reasons. He was gone because he knew something or because he'd been part of it. He drove to Kemp's apartment. The blinds were drawn, the mailbox overflowing. When the landlord opened the door with a spare key, the air hit him first, stale, chemical, faintly metallic. The place was spotless. Too spotless. No clothes, no food, no photos. The only thing left on the kitchen counter was a small envelope with Briggs's name written on it. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a single Polaroid. It showed the Maple Ridge police station, taken from across the street, at night. In the upper window, a silhouette, Briggs working late. And beneath it, in the same shaky handwriting, "He told me to watch." Briggs sank into a chair, staring at the photo. Heller. It had to be. Heller had been the mentor, Price the student, Kemp the disciple. The infection had spread. A pattern passed from man to man like a curse. He turned the photo over. On the back, faint and almost smudged, were GPS coordinates written in pencil. He grabbed his phone, entered them. The location blinked onto the map. A rural stretch outside of town, deep in the forest, near an abandoned quarry. He knew that place. Everyone in Maple Ridge did. Teenagers went there to drink. Hunters used the back roads in fall. But no one went at night. Not since the accident in 1987. A sinkhole that swallowed part of the quarry floor and left behind a pool of black water that locals called the pit. Briggs drove out alone. The road wound through the woods like a vein, narrowing until the trees pressed against his headlights. The GPS beeped, signaling the end of the route. He parked, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped into the rain-soaked dark. The forest was silent except for the dripping of water from the leaves. He followed a faint trail, boots sinking into the mud. After 10 minutes, the trees opened into the clearing, the quarry. The pit glistened at its center, smooth as glass, reflecting the gray sky above. He scanned the ground. Something was there, footprints, faint but fresh. Pair of boots. Another pair, smaller. The trail led to the edge of the water, then stopped. Something else caught his eye. A wooden crate, half buried near the rocks. He knelt, brushed away the mud. Inside was a camera. Old, heavy, Polaroid SX-70. The same model that had taken every picture in the case. He opened the back. One cartridge left. One undeveloped photo still loaded. He pulled it out carefully. The image was faint but forming. He watched as the chemicals bloomed under the gray light. Slowly, a face emerged. Lily Monroe. But not as she was in the diner. Her hair was longer. She looked older. Her eyes open, alive, staring directly at the camera. Briggs's stomach turned. The timestamp printed along the bottom edge read October 5, 2002. A week after she vanished. He stumbled back, nearly dropping the photo. It was impossible. The date, the condition, everything suggested she'd been alive long after everyone assumed she was dead. His flashlight beam wavered. Across the clearing, something moved. A flicker of motion near the tree-line. He turned, gun raised. Maple Ridge Police. Step out. Silence. He took a step forward. The beam caught a reflection, the faint gleam of glass. A camera lens. Then another flash, brilliant, white, blinding. He fired once. The echo bounced through the quarry, swallowed by the trees. When his vision cleared, the figure was gone. Only the camera flash remained burned into his retinas. He backed toward his car, heart pounding. The rain intensified, sheets of water cascading from the branches. When he reached the road, he stopped cold. His car was gone. In its place, under the single beam of his flashlight, stood something small and rectangular on the hood of a rusted truck that hadn't been there before. Another Polaroid. He picked it up with trembling hands. This one showed the clearing he'd just been standing in, from behind him. His own figure, gun raised, caught in mid-motion. The caption below, "You found her." He drove back to town in a stranger's pickup, headlights cutting through the fog. His mind spun in fragments. Lily alive after the abduction, the camera at the pit, the unseen photographer who always seemed one step ahead. It didn't add up. Price was dead. Kemp was gone. Heller had vanished 2 decades ago. So who was behind the lens now? When he reached his office, he went straight to the evidence board. The photos, the coordinates, the handwriting, he lined them up by date. A pattern emerged like a signature repeating through time. A spiral. Each photo, each clue, leading him closer to the center. And at that center, Lily. What if the case wasn't about her disappearance, but about her return? The phone rang, cutting through the storm of his thoughts. He picked up. No one spoke, just breathing, slow, even. "Who is this?" Briggs demanded. A pause, then a whisper. "You should have left it cold." Click. He stared at the receiver for a long time after the line went dead. His pulse thudded in his ears. The streetlights outside flickered, throwing long shadows across the wall. The photo of Lily still sat on his desk, her eyes locked on his. Alive. A week later, somewhere. And whoever had taken that picture was still out there, watching, waiting, guiding him toward something he might not survive to find. The Maple Ridge cold case wasn't just reopening. It was rewriting itself. And this time, the hunter was being pulled into the frame. Morning came gray and thin, the kind of light that made everything look drained of color. Detective Alan Briggs hadn't slept. His desk was buried under files, maps, and a fresh set of Polaroids still drying under the flickering fluorescent bulb. Each photo stared back at him like a confession that refused to finish its sentence. Lily Monroe alive in that photograph from October 2002, a week after her disappearance. Her eyes open, her expression distant, her face pale but unbroken. Whoever had taken that picture had kept her breathing. That single truth shattered every assumption built over the past year. Forensics was already processing the photo, but Briggs didn't need lab reports to know what it meant. Someone had staged everything. The car left behind, the blood, the scrap of fabric. Props in a performance meant to bury the truth beneath tragedy. The Ridgeway Diner wasn't the end of Lily's story. It was the opening act. He replayed the call from the night before in his head. You should have left it cold. The voice had been low, distorted, calm in the way that only someone deeply certain could sound. A voice that belonged to someone who knew he'd pick up. At 8:45 a.m., Briggs met with forensic tech Jamie Laird. The Polaroid had been developed on genuine SX-70 film stock, expiration date 2003. That meant whoever took it had been active long after the supposed end of the case. And the location? Briggs asked. Jamie nodded. We ran the vegetation pattern through mapping software. The moss, the angle of sunlight, it's consistent with the quarry clearing you found. So the photo was taken there, or somewhere close. Briggs exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Then she was alive near that site. Jamie hesitated. There's something else. We ran the chemical residue on the film. It's been stored cold, refrigerated for years. The photo itself was only recently exposed. Briggs froze. You're saying it's new? I'm saying someone took it recently, maybe within the last month. That changed everything. If the photograph was recent, Lily might still be alive. Or someone wanted him to think she was. By noon, the station buzzed with whispers. The Lily Monroe case had clawed its way back from the dead, and the department didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. The chief wanted the evidence sealed, the press kept out, but the story was leaking fast. One intern had already tipped off a reporter from the Chronicle. The headline hit the airwaves by nightfall. Cold case returns. Maple Ridge detective receives new evidence in Monroe disappearance. Briggs hated it. Every camera turned toward him felt like bait. Whoever was orchestrating this wanted attention, wanted to see the story alive again. He spent the evening combing through the evidence logs from 2002. Heller, Price, Kemp, the same shadow repeating under different names. If this was a lineage of predators, maybe the newest one had stepped out to finish the lesson. Each generation leaving its mark. Each killing colder, more deliberate. At 10:32 p.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Static. Then, faintly, the sound of something familiar, the mechanical whir of a Polaroid camera. He went still. Who is this? No answer. Just a click. Then a voice. A whisper. She's waiting. Click. The line went dead. Briggs's heart pounded. He stood, grabbing his coat and his gun. He shouldn't have gone alone, but instinct drowned reason. The coordinates from the previous photo still glowed faintly on his dashboard GPS. The quarry. The same cursed patch of earth where every clue led back. He drove fast, headlights slicing through mist. The road wound between trees slick with rain, the forest rising on either side like a wall. When he reached the clearing, the sky had turned ink black. The pit shimmered under the moonlight, a perfect mirror reflecting the storm clouds above. He stepped out slowly, scanning the treeline. Then he saw it. A light, flickering, moving deeper into the woods. He followed, boots sinking into the mud. The beam of his flashlight caught the glint of something ahead, metal. An old trailer, half buried in weeds. Its door hung open, swaying on rusted hinges. The inside was dark, the air thick with mildew and something sour underneath. He called out, "Lily?" Silence. He stepped inside. The floor creaked beneath him. The walls were papered with photographs, hundreds of them. Not just Lily, others. Women from the missing person archives, faces he recognized from the old case files. All staring out from their Polaroid frames, eyes vacant, mouths half open, frozen between fear and recognition. In the center of the room, a table. On it, a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a stack of labeled cassettes. Monroe, Price, Kemp. He pressed play. A man's voice filled the trailer, low and calm, with a strange, methodical rhythm. Observation log, subject 17. Initial resistance minimal. Subject compliant under controlled exposure. Eyes remain open, pulse steady. Condition maintained. Briggs felt his throat tighten. Controlled exposure. Condition maintained. The words were clinical, detached. He fast-forwarded. The tape clicked, then resumed. October 5th. The ritual repeated. Subject awake during final frame. Capture successful. He froze. Final frame. The Polaroid of Lily at the quarry. A sound behind him made him spin, the faint scrape of gravel. He turned off the light, gun raised. Outside, footsteps moved in slow, deliberate circles around the trailer. "Show yourself," he shouted. No response. Then, a voice from the dark. "You weren't supposed to come alone." The words slid through the night like oil. Briggs stepped out, sweeping the flashlight in wide arcs. The beam caught the shape of a man standing just beyond the edge of light. Tall, wearing a hood, face hidden. "Are you Heller?" Briggs demanded. A pause. Then the faintest smile in the dark. "Names don't matter anymore." Briggs took one step forward. "Where is she?" "She's close," the man said softly. "Closer than you think." Another flash. White light exploded across the clearing. Briggs flinched, firing once, twice. When his eyes adjusted, the man was gone. Only the echo of footsteps fading into the trees. Briggs ran after him, branches slapping his face, the beam jerking wildly. He broke into a second clearing and stopped cold. There, nailed to the trunk of a tree, was another Polaroid. It showed the trailer he'd just been standing in. His silhouette framed in the doorway. Beneath it, written in that same uneven hand, "Last frame coming soon." He ripped the photo down, chest heaving. Somewhere beyond the trees, laughter echoed. A sound that didn't belong to madness or joy, but something perfectly in between. Back at the station, drenched and shaking, he laid the new photo on his desk. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette he'd promised himself years ago he'd never touch again. Every instinct screamed that the line between hunter and hunted had vanished. Whoever was orchestrating this was inside his head, predicting every move, every breath. He reviewed the recording again. The voice was filtered, but faint background noise bled through. Dripping water, a faint metallic clang, and somewhere far behind it, a low rhythmic thud. Machinery, maybe. He isolated the sound, amplified it. The pattern matched a hydraulic press, industrial. There were only 3 sites in the county that fit, 2 closed mills and 1 active junkyard. He circled the name, Riverside Salvage. At dawn, he drove there. The yard stretched across acres of rusting metal and stacked cars. Steam hissed from broken pipes. He showed his badge to the gatekeeper, an old man with cataract eyes. "You got anyone working nights here?" Briggs asked. The man shook his head. "No night shift, but someone's been coming in after hours. Leaves the back gate open sometimes. Thought it was you folks." "Did you see him?" "Just the light from his camera." Briggs's pulse kicked. He moved fast, weaving between the rows of crushed cars until he reached the far end of the lot. A single trailer sat under the shadow of a crane. The door was padlocked, but the lock had been cut. Inside, the air was cold. A wall of photos again. Only this time, the images were recent. Taken from a distance, grainy, invasive. Shots of the police station, Briggs's home, his car, his face. And at the center of the display, a new one. Lily Monroe. Older now, pale. Eyes open, but something gone behind them. She was standing in a room lit by a single bulb. A date was scrawled underneath. Yesterday. Briggs staggered back. Whoever was behind this hadn't just resurrected the case. They were rewriting its ending one photograph at a time. And somewhere, Lily Monroe, or whatever remained of her, was alive, being staged for one final frame. He turned, catching his reflection in a cracked mirror nailed to the wall. His own eyes looked hollow, hunted. Behind him, a flash went off. He spun. Empty doorway. No one there. But on the table, where there hadn't been anything a moment before, lay a fresh Polaroid. The image still developing. He picked it up. His hands shook as the picture came into focus. Himself, standing exactly where he was now, holding the camera. And the caption beneath it, written in blood-red ink. Smile, detective. The story ends with you. Briggs dropped the photo. The camera clicked again from somewhere in the dark. And the cold case of Lily Monroe moved from mystery to nightmare. The sirens broke the silence before dawn, their red strobes painting the junkyard in a feverish pulse. Rain poured down in sheets, drumming against rusted car roofs, hissing against hot engines. Detective Alan Briggs stood under the crane tower, soaked to the bone, gripping the newest Polaroid so tightly the edges curled in his hand. Smile, detective. The story ends with you. Officers swarmed the yard, combing through piles of metal and shattered glass. Forensics photographed everything, but Briggs barely heard the noise around him. His mind was running too fast, too dark. Whoever had taken that last photo had been close, within feet. They'd stood behind him in the same room, close enough to capture his reflection, to hear his breath. Yet no one had seen them leave. The chief arrived minutes later, pulling up in a slick black sedan, face drawn tight. Alan, you want to tell me what the hell this is? Briggs turned, eyes bloodshot. It's him, the same man from the quarry. He's been following me. Following you? The chief's voice hardened. You've gone off alone. You've broken protocol. And now you're telling me the suspect's stalking you? He's not stalking me, Briggs said quietly. He's performing. The chief frowned. Performing. He wants me to see it. He's not just killing, he's directing. Briggs pointed at the walls of photos inside the trailer. He's creating his story step by step. The diner, the storage locker, the quarry, the junkyard, it's all been staged for the camera. Every scene, every clue, every frame. And the ending, he lifted the Polaroid, is supposed to be me. The chief's expression flickered between disbelief and unease. You're exhausted. Go home, Alan. Sleep. But Briggs shook his head. I can't. Not while he's still writing. By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and metallic. The media descended on Maple Ridge like vultures, circling the scent of fresh tragedy. Detective targeted in ongoing cold case. Reporters called it obsession. The department called it contamination. Briggs called it the truth. He spent the next 48 hours in his office, refusing to leave. Every photograph was pinned to the wall, every location marked with black string that webbed outward like veins. At the center, Lily Monroe. He stared at her last known photo, taken yesterday, according to the timestamp. Her face older, gaunt, but still her. It couldn't be a fabrication. The lighting, the skin texture, the reflection in her eyes, they were too real. She had aged, which meant, impossibly, that she'd survived for years, hidden somewhere close. He replayed the recording from the trailer again. The voice of the man he'd chased through the woods. Measured, detached. The ritual repeated. Subject awake during final frame. The tape clicked and hissed as it reached the end. The silence that followed thicker than the sound itself. The ritual. That word gnawed at him. It wasn't random. It was a process. A method. A repetition of something sacred to whoever was behind the lens. Briggs began cross-referencing every cold case in the state archive. Abductions, disappearances, unexplained photos, looking for patterns. First, nothing. Then, something buried deep. A case file from 1987. A girl named Angela Klein, missing from a rest stop outside Cedar Hollow. The report included one unusual detail: a Polaroid mailed anonymously to her family 2 weeks after she vanished. The photo showed her sitting on a chair in a dim room, eyes open, mouth slack. Written across the bottom, Frame 1. Briggs's pulse surged. Frame 1. Lily had been Frame 17. He opened the old evidence scans. The handwriting, same tilt, same shaky loops. The timeline stretched nearly 2 decades. The same man, or someone carrying on his ritual, had been taking victims one after another across years and counties. Each one photographed, catalogued, immortalized in a frozen moment of control. Heller. It had to trace back to Heller, Price's mentor, the man who'd vanished without a trace. Briggs pulled his file again. John Heller, born 1952, former corrections officer at Evergreen. Discharged in '97 after accusations of inmate misconduct. No charges. Disappeared shortly after Price's release. He stared at the grainy photo attached to the file. Balding, narrow eyes, deep lines around the mouth. But something about the gaze, it stuck with him. Predatory calm. He enlarged it. Then he froze. He'd seen those eyes before. Briggs pulled a different file, the staff list from the Maple Ridge Police Department. The morgue photo from Price's suicide. The coroner, Dr. Samuel Heller. Same eyes, different name. He felt the blood drain from his face. The coroner who had ruled Price's death a suicide, the man who told him the rope marks looked clean, was the same age, same build, same hollow stare as the John Heller from the Evergreen records. He hadn't vanished. He'd changed his name and hidden in plain sight. Briggs bolted upright, chair crashing to the floor. He grabbed his gun, his keys, his badge. He called dispatch. "I need a team at the county morgue. Now." But by the time they arrived, the building was empty. No staff, no lights. The front door hung open. Inside, the morgue smelled of bleach and formaldehyde. The drawers were half open, some empty, some occupied by the long-forgotten dead. On the autopsy table lay a single Polaroid camera. Next to it, a note. "You wanted the truth. Come take it." Below it, an address, Ridgeway Diner. 10:42 p.m. The same timestamp as the night Lily disappeared. Briggs's heart hammered. It was a trap, obviously, but there was no choice left. If Heller was alive, if Lily was still breathing, that diner, the place where everything began, was where it would end. The clock hit 10. The streets were deserted, slick with drizzle. Briggs parked across from the diner, lights off, eyes locked on the glowing sign that still flickered between half-broken neon tubes. Inside, the booths were dark, chairs stacked, only the faint hum of a single overhead lamp. He stepped inside, gun drawn. The air was heavy with dust and memory. "John Heller." His voice echoed off the tiled walls. "It's over." A voice answered from the shadows near the counter. Calm. Familiar. "It's never over, detective. Not while someone's watching." Briggs turned. A man stepped into the light. Older now, but unmistakable. Heller's face was pale, stretched thin over bone. His eyes glimmered with quiet amusement. "You took your time," he said. "I was starting to think you'd forgotten me. You faked your death. You killed Price. You killed them all." Heller smiled faintly. "Killed? No, I preserved them. You see, detective, people forget faces. But photographs remember." Briggs leveled his gun. "Where's Lily?" "She's right where she belongs." "Where?" Heller tilted his head. "Would you like to see her?" He reached behind the counter, pulled a small Polaroid camera from a paper bag, and placed it on the counter. "Go ahead," he said. "Take the last picture." Briggs hesitated. "What are you talking about?" Heller smiled. "You've been chasing ghosts, Alan. But the frame was always meant for you. Lily's story isn't about her. It's about you finishing it." Something shifted in the corner booth. Briggs turned his flashlight and froze. Lily Monroe sat there, alive, barely. Her skin was pale, her eyes distant, her lips trembling as if she hadn't spoken in years. The light reflected off the metal cuffs chaining her wrists to the table leg. Lily, Briggs whispered. Her voice cracked. He said you'd come. Briggs rushed forward, but the camera clicked before he reached her. Flash. White, blinding. When his vision cleared, Heller was gone. So was Lily. The cuffs hung empty, swinging slightly in the air. On the table, another Polaroid still developing. He snatched it up. The image formed slowly, his own hand reaching toward Lily, frozen mid-motion. Beneath it, the words, "Final exposure." Outside, tires screeched. An engine roared away into the night. Briggs ran after it, but by the time he reached the road, the taillights had vanished into the fog. He stood in the rain, shaking, the photograph bleeding colors in his hand. Behind him, the diner's neon sign flickered one last time, then went dark. Somewhere in the distance, a camera shutter clicked. And for the first time, Briggs understood what the killer meant. This wasn't just a murder. It was an art form, and he had just stepped into the final frame. The diner was dark again, silent. Only the faint hum of the old refrigerator broke the stillness. Detective Alan Briggs stood in the center of that silence, drenched and trembling, the Polaroid clutched in his hand. On its slick surface, the image was still forming. His own face, reaching for Lily Monroe, her figure half-faded, ghost-like. Beneath it, those words, like a curse whispered through time, "Final exposure." Rain hammered against the windows. Somewhere outside, thunder rolled like slow applause. The neon sign that had hung over the Ridgeway Diner for 20 years gave one last flicker before dying completely, leaving the town's most infamous landmark swallowed in shadow. Briggs holstered his weapon, his heartbeat deafening in the stillness. Heller was gone. Lily was gone. And for the first time in his career, Briggs couldn't tell if he was chasing a man or a myth. He walked to the booth where she'd been sitting, where her ghost had almost touched him. The cuffs still hung from the table leg, cold, real. One of them was smeared with blood. The imprint of her wrist was visible in it. She had been there, alive. The sound of tires screeching replayed in his head, the echo of Heller's escape. Briggs burst out the door, scanning the empty street, but the road was nothing but rain and fog. The world had erased the evidence as quickly as it had appeared. He called dispatch with shaking hands. "This is Detective Briggs. I've located Lily Monroe. She's alive. Repeat, she's alive. Suspect Heller is in flight. Send all available units to Route 17 heading north." The dispatcher hesitated. "Detective, what are you saying? Lily Monroe's been missing for 24 years. Briggs clenched his teeth. "She's not missing. She's been kept. Now move." He drove into the storm, tires cutting through standing water. The wipers slapped frantically, but visibility was nearly gone. He followed instinct. The old map of the county burned into his memory. If Heller was running, he'd head somewhere familiar. Somewhere he could finish his performance uninterrupted. The quarry. The pit. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The roads twisted through the forest like veins of shadow. Every flash of lightning illuminated the trees bending in the wind. The deeper he went, the more it felt like the world was narrowing, the night closing its hands around him. When he reached the old quarry turnoff, the gate was open, the chain broken. Fresh tire tracks cut through the mud. He killed the headlights, drew his gun, and stepped into the dark. The path sloped downward, slick and uneven. His flashlight beam danced across the wet ground, catching the shimmer of something metallic ahead. He approached cautiously. A car. Heller's sedan. Engine still warm. Door open. And on the driver's seat, another Polaroid. Briggs lifted it slowly, his fingers shaking. It showed the quarry pit, same as before, but with two figures standing at the edge. The image was still developing, but he recognized his own silhouette. The second figure, Lily. He turned toward the pit, breath catching. The flash of lightning tore across the sky, and for one brief second he saw them. Two shapes at the edge of the black water. "Lily!" he shouted, running forward. "Lily, it's me." The figures didn't move. When he reached the edge, his beam illuminated the scene. Two mannequins, dressed in their clothes. His jacket, her red one, their faces crudely painted. Plastic smiles. Pinned to the female mannequin's chest was a note scrawled in red ink. "You were never chasing me, Alan. You were becoming me." Briggs felt the ground tilt under him. The rain hammered harder, drowning the sound of his breath. He stumbled back, gasping, his flashlight beam jerking wildly across the dark. Then he saw it, a small wooden box half buried near the edge. He knelt, pried it open with trembling fingers. Inside, rolls of film, dozens of them, each labeled by date, each with names he recognized, the missing women, the forgotten victims, Lily Monroe at the top, and one roll with a fresh date, today. He pulled it out, hands slick with rain. Footsteps behind him. He spun, gun raised. "Drop it," a voice said calmly. Briggs froze. It wasn't Heller's voice. It was softer, higher. A figure stepped from the darkness. Hooded, soaked, a Polaroid camera hanging around their neck. The flash reflected in their eyes. "Where is he?" Briggs demanded. The figure tilted their head. Lightning flashed, and for the first time Briggs saw her face. Lily Monroe. Older, pale, alive. He lowered his gun slowly. "Lily." Her lips trembled, forming a smile that wasn't a smile. "He said you'd come." Briggs's chest tightened. "It's over now. You're safe. He can't hurt you anymore." She shook her head gently. "You don't understand." "Then help me. Tell me where he went." Her eyes lifted toward the pit. "He's everywhere. He's behind the glass. You just don't see it yet." "Lily, listen to me." The camera in her hands clicked. A flash burst across his face, searing white. When his vision cleared, she was gone. The pit rippled, a single disturbance spreading across the surface. He staggered forward, shouting her name, but the forest swallowed his voice. Only the echo came back, distorted, hollow, as if mocking him. Then he heard it, a faint mechanical hum behind him. He turned. The trunk of Heller's car was open. Inside, a generator, a small photo printer attached by cable. It buzzed softly, ejecting a fresh Polaroid into the rain. Briggs reached for it, and the moment he saw it, his knees gave out. It showed the same clearing, the same moment. Him standing alone at the edge of the pit, flashlight beam trembling, mouth open mid-shout. The caption beneath it, "Frame 18. He dropped the photo, heart hammering. Teen. Lily had been 17.